My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 27 years old, and I didn't realize my engagement was already over until my fiancé laughed during couples counseling. Like he'd just told a harmless joke. While explaining that the main reason he stayed with me was because being single at his age felt depressing. I didn't cry. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't even shift in my seat. I just sat there, hands folded neatly in my lap, listening to the quiet, unmistakable sound of something precious collapsing in real time. Not shattering, not exploding, just slowly giving way, like a structure that's been hollowed out from the inside. We'd been together for 4 years. Engaged for 8 months. Long enough that our life felt settled. Predictable, maybe, but safe in the way people often confuse with permanent. The kind of relationship people nodded approvingly at. The kind that made our parents relax. The kind that looked solid from the outside. It was his idea to go to counseling. That's the part people always get wrong when I tell this story later. I hadn't complained. I hadn't threatened to leave. I hadn't sensed disaster lurking beneath the surface. He said he felt disconnected. Said he wanted to fix things before the wedding. And I agreed because when someone you love tells you they're struggling, you show up. You don't argue semantics. You don't defend yourself. You show up and assume love will meet you there. So there I was, on a Thursday evening in early March, sitting in a softly lit office that smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Across from us was Dr. Patricia Hammond, a calm woman in her 50s with gentle eyes and a yellow notepad she barely touched. She asked the usual questions. How long had we been together? Why did we get engaged? What brought us here? He went first. He talked about routine, about losing the spark, about how we'd started to feel more like roommates than partners. I nodded along, mentally taking notes, already thinking of solutions. Date nights, a weekend trip, something intentional. Okay, I thought, this is workable. Then Dr. Hammond leaned forward slightly and asked him to be more specific. What do you mean by routine? He shifted in his seat and smiled, awkward, almost self-conscious. Well, Claire's very predictable. She wakes up early, goes to work, comes home, cooks the same rotation of meals. Same shows, same clothes, everything's very safe. My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet. Dr. Hammond nodded gently. And how does that make you feel? He exhaled, like he'd been waiting for permission. Like the door had finally opened. Then he laughed. Not loudly, just a small, nervous chuckle. Almost playful. I mean, she's a great person. Reliable, stable, the kind of woman your mom loves. He shrugged. But she's kind of plain. Heat rushed behind my eyes, sharp and sudden. Still, I didn't speak. And honestly, he continued, still smiling, still casual, I think the main reason I stayed is because being single at my age is depressing. The words landed heavy, final. He laughed again, like he expected agreement. Like this was normal couples therapy honesty. Dr. Hammond didn't laugh. She turned to me instead. Claire, how are you feeling hearing this? I looked at my fiancé. He was still smiling. That same smile he wore when he thought he was being charming. The one that told me he genuinely did not understand what he'd just destroyed. I think this session just fixed everything for me, I said quietly. His smile vanished. What? He asked. What do you mean? I mean, I said calmly, you just told me you don't actually want to be with me. You're with me because you're afraid of being alone. That's not. He reached for my hand. I pulled it back. That's not a relationship, I continued. That's a placeholder. He frowned. Claire, you're overreacting. I was just being honest. You were, I agreed. And I appreciate it, because now I know exactly what I need to do. Dr. Hammond tried to intervene gently. She suggested exploration, reframing, space to unpack intentions. I shook my head. I'm not interested in convincing someone to want me, I said. And I'm not interested in being the safe option someone settles for. The room went quiet. When the session ended, I stood, thanked the therapist, and walked out. I didn't look back. The parking lot was nearly empty. The sun had already dipped behind the buildings, leaving that flat gray-blue light that makes everything feel unfinished. I walked faster than I meant to, keys clenched in my fist, chest tight like something had lodged itself between my ribs. Claire, wait. I didn't turn around. Claire, please. His footsteps hurried behind me. I stopped beside my car and pressed the unlock button just to hear the click. Proof that I still had control over at least one small thing. I didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. You know that, right? I turned and really looked at him. His face was flushed. His eyes darted, already trying to patch the damage, not because he understood it, but because he could feel consequences coming. Then how did you mean it? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. I was just being honest. Therapy's about honesty. You can't punish me for that. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm listening to you. That's not fair, he snapped. You're twisting my words. You said you stayed because being single at your age is depressing, I replied evenly. You laughed while you said it. Silence. I didn't think you'd take it so personally, he muttered. That sentence did it. I'm engaged to you, I said. How could I not take that personally? He reached for my sleeve. I stepped back. Come on, he said. We've built a life together. 4 years. You're really going to throw that away over one badly phrased comment? You didn't phrase it badly, I said. You phrased it honestly. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But it was enough. I need space, I said, getting into my car. Don't follow me. I drove away. I went straight to Maya's place. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask a single question. She just pulled me into a hug so tight it knocked the breath out of me. We sat on her couch while I told her everything. The laughter, the words, plain, settling, echoing like they'd been carved into my skull. That's not honesty, Maya said when I finished. That's contempt. He thinks I'm overreacting, I whispered. Of course he does, she said. People always minimize the damage when they're the ones holding the knife. I didn't sleep that night. My phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, messages. Please call me. You're being unreasonable. We need to talk this through. I turned it off around midnight. The next morning, I went back to the apartment while he was at work. Our apartment. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, noticing all the things I'd stopped seeing. His shoes kicked off by the door, his coffee mug in the sink, the jacket he always draped over the chair instead of hanging up. I packed quietly. When I finished, I stood in the living room and looked around. It already felt different. I called him. Your things are packed, I said. You can pick them up tonight or I'll drop them at your sister's. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. You're serious? I've never been more serious. This is insane, he said, over one comment. It wasn't one comment, I replied. It was the truth. He came over later. We sat across from each other with boxes stacked between us like a boundary neither of us acknowledged. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean any of it. You did, I said. You just didn't expect me to hear it. What about the wedding? He asked weakly. I'll eat the cost, I said. Consider it tuition. For what? For learning this before it was legally binding. He left in 2 trips. No goodbye, just the sound of the door closing. For the first time in years, the apartment was silent. Not peaceful, just empty. I canceled the wedding on a Tuesday morning, sent one neutral message to friends and family. I assumed he'd do the same. That was my mistake. 3 days later, Maya called. Have you checked his social media? No, I said. Why? Because he's loud, she said, and not in a good way. I checked. Quotes, subtle accusations, stories about honesty and emotional maturity, comments flooding in with sympathy. I set my phone face down. I'm not responding, I said. Anyone who knows me knows the truth. Maya hesitated. There's more. And that's when I realized, walking away was only the first part of the story. I sighed. Of course there was more. His sister was the one who called me first, not him, not an apology, not a moment of reflection. His sister. She's trying to get your number, she said without preamble. I froze. My fingers tightened around the phone. Which sister? Melissa, the older one. That surprised me more than it should have. I'd always liked Melissa. She was practical in a way that bordered on blunt. The kind of person who didn't dress things up to make them easier to swallow. She never played the polished relationship performance game her brother did. She saw things as they were, even when that made her unpopular. Okay, I said after a pause. I'll call her. She answered on the first ring. Claire, Melissa said immediately, voice low. Careful, I'm really sorry to do this, but I need to tell you something. My stomach tightened, the way it does right before bad news confirms what you already know. He's been staying with me, she continued, and he's been telling everyone you overreacted, that you threw away 4 years over nothing. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. That tracks. But I was there the night you left therapy, she said. I heard him on the phone with his friend Kayla. My grip tightened on the phone. He was laughing. Claire, she said quietly, laughing. He told her how he'd finally been honest about you being boring, and how you freaked out. He said he'd give you a few days to calm down, and then you'd come crawling back. The room tilted slightly, like my body needed a moment to recalibrate. He said that? I asked. Yes, she replied, and when Kayla asked if he even wanted you back, he said, verbatim, not really, but the wedding's already planned, and I'm not starting over at my age. I sat down hard on the couch, the words knocking the air from my lungs. I told him that was cruel. Melissa continued. We fought about it. He accused me of betraying him, but Claire, you did the right thing. The tears that burned behind my eyes weren't from shock. They were from confirmation, from knowing that the voice in my head, the one I'd been taught to doubt, had been right all along. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. You deserved to know, she said. You deserve someone who's excited to choose you, not someone checking boxes. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Vindication is strange like that. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like grief, with proof. 4 years, not a love story, an arrangement. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my apartment. I'd just come back from the gym, hair damp with sweat, leggings, no makeup, no emotional armor. I opened the door and found him sitting on the front steps like a photograph from a life I'd already lived. We need to talk, he said, standing quickly. I stared at him. This man who had laughed about me being boring. This man who had assumed I'd crawl back. What's left to say? I asked. I've been thinking, he said, words tumbling out too fast. About what I said, about how I hurt you, and I was wrong. I was defensive, but I think we can work through this. I'm seeing Drive, Hammond individually now. You're still seeing her? I interrupted. Yes, he said eagerly. She thinks we should try couples therapy again, with better headspace. I laughed once, not cruelly, just incredulously. My headspace is fine, I said. My standards just changed. His face tightened. Melissa told me what you said after therapy, I continued, about waiting for me to come crawling back, about not actually wanting me. The color drained from his face. She had no right to tell you that. So you did say it. She took it out of context. I tilted my head. What context makes that okay? He didn't answer. And in that silence, I finally saw the pattern clearly. He stood there like someone waiting for mercy without accountability, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched, the posture of a man who wanted absolution without change. I was hurt, he said finally. I was venting. People say things they don't mean when they're hurt. You seem to say a lot of things you don't mean, I replied. How am I supposed to know which version of you is real? The one who loves you, he said quickly. I held his gaze. The version of you that loves me wouldn't have said any of those things, not in therapy, not to your friend, not ever. You're being unfair, he snapped. No, I said calmly, I'm being accurate. He took a step closer. I didn't move. I was done shrinking. 4 years doesn't just disappear, he said. You can't erase that because of one bad moment. It wasn't one moment, I replied. It was a pattern I finally stopped explaining away. So that's it, he said, frustration creeping in. You're just done. Yes. The word felt solid, final, like a door closing without slamming. You're making a mistake, he said, voice hardening. Do you know how hard it is to find someone stable at our age? Someone compatible? I don't want to be someone you settle for, I said. I want to be someone you're excited about. That's unrealistic, he snapped, Life isn't a rom-com. I'm not asking for fireworks, I replied. I'm asking for respect. For a split second, I saw panic flicker across his face. You'll regret this, he said. You'll see. Maybe, I said quietly, but I'd rather regret leaving than regret staying. I turned toward the building. Claire, he called. Everyone makes mistakes. I didn't turn around. It wasn't one mistake, I said. It was 4 years of you tolerating me instead of choosing me. I went inside and closed the door. That night, I slept better than I had in months, not because I wasn't sad, but because I wasn't confused. The smear campaign faded slowly. His posts grew less pointed, then sporadic, then disappeared entirely. Melissa told me he'd started dating again, someone spontaneous, someone exciting. I wished him well. Excitement doesn't fix emptiness, it just distracts from it. I started doing small things differently, said yes more often, took a weekend trip with Maya, signed up for a hiking group on a whim, picked up my guitar again, the one I'd stopped playing after he joked it was just a phase. Turns out, it wasn't. Dr. Hammond reached out and suggested individual sessions. In our first meeting, she said something that settled deep in my chest. He told you who he was, she said, and you believed him. I keep wondering if I overreacted, I admitted. You didn't, she said, you chose self-respect. 2 months later, my life felt lighter, not perfect, just honest. I went on a few dates, no pressure, no auditions. There was one man, Evan, who listened, who waited for answers, who never made me feel like I had to earn permanence. One night, sitting in his car after dinner, he looked at me and said, I really like how you see the world. It wasn't grand, but it was sincere. Sometimes I still think about that therapy room, the soft lighting, his laughter, the moment he told me, without meaning to, that he didn't want me. That moment wasn't a failure. It was a gift. He gave me the truth before I gave him the rest of my life.